それじゃカステラの生地でも飲んでな。
Who doesn't love a good shake of raw flour and eggs, am I right? This one, interestingly enough, opened with Sugiko of all characters, and we would actually get to see the Mori routines of 3/4 of the G4, so the G3 I guess. Not at all complain, mind you, as it is an interesting change-up to learn more about the secondary protagonist team in this show. Starting with the aforementioned Sugiko, we learned that when she's not playing cat girl, she was a bit of a cat lady. Like, seriously, be careful about keeping too many of those things, or else you'll actually get infected by a parasite that'll drive you a little crazy. Meanwhile, Hirano was practicing all of the martial arts at once. Well, I'll take over busboy Changchi any day of the week. And Saku, of course, got on her computer after getting her morning sugar intake. Oh god, it's one of my leftover pre-cure product placements. Maybe next time you should try going with the 6-star Dragon Ball. You might not get a wish out of it, but it'll probably taste like oranges. Anyway, in case you're wondering why these three weren't at work, well, Kokoro wondered the same thing, as she made a group call with all of them, which I'm not sure you would be able to do with Hirano's old-ass phone there, but whatever. While the Phantom Thief Empire's activities had mostly stopped with Henriette's departure, there was still something that Kokoro needed help with. However, amongst her paperwork, she had unknowingly signed off on each of her subordinates getting paid leaves on the same day. Now you see, this is why you gotta be more like the anime industry and just force your guys into hard labor. Meanwhile, Milky Homes were holding their first classes at their very makeshift academy, with their first students being some kids who were probably just curious of why 4 cosplayers were doing in the middle of a disaster area. At the very least, they only charged whatever snacks they had on hand, and thankfully Shoma wasn't there, or else these freeloaders probably would get a whole candy store's worth of junk food. Anyway, their first lecture was all about disguises. I mean, considering what some master disguises are like, it's not that different. Also, if you're going to do chair disguises, at the very least, you should at least be like the guy from Shinkansen Zero. Understandably, the kids weren't interested in a bunch of has-beens, so they left in disgust. At arguably their lowest point, Milky Homes were susceptible to any sort of suggestions, including this narcissist, who even the guy himself would probably say she needs to get off her high segue. But yeah, Kokoro wanted to get them to help her ruin the days off of her subordinates out of pure spite. Their first target was Sugiko, who was working a food truck that was selling castella, which is a kind of sponge cake. Thus, of course, Milky Homes tried to get some free handouts, which, to be fair, they probably would have done even without Kokoro telling them to. She gave them one each, but that wasn't quite enough. You know, y'all could actually make some good money as IRL streamers by just being the slightest bit obnoxious. I mean, I've heard it work out great for some other guys. Left with no choice, she let them drink up the batter, which, yeah, seems way more wasteful than just giving them some baked cakes, but whatever. According to Kokoro, this is all part of teaching them how to do negotiations rather than just being told leeches. Yeah, needless to say, and while Milky Homes was certainly being as dame as ever, this was Kokoro at her absolute worst, so one could only hope that she gets karma by the end of this. Anyway, after forcing her to close shop for the day, Milky Homes moved on to Hirano and her dojo that they were gonna storm, which, yeah, without toys, they could best muster up a light shower. That is, until they turned out the lights and let Cordia do her thing. Last up was Saku, who was hanging out at a Mahjong bar, where they encouraged everyone to cosplay in sailor uniforms.
Okay.
Though, and of course, they did a Saki parody because Mahjong, and I guess Saku's VA had a supporting role in that series. Well, anyway, her day was ruined because her dramatic Saki hand was overshadowed by Ellie, who somehow got a full hand of all of the same tiles, which I'm pretty sure is impossible in Mahjong, but whatever. She honestly got off the easiest of the G3. Later, while celebrating her very petty victory, Kokoro ended up encountering some security guards who accidentally stepped on her foot. Now, to her credit, she didn't go full bad cop and try to charge them with battery on an officer, but then again, she could also get them on something that would be a lot easier to get away with.
はい、交通課です。
駐車違反よ。浜っ子セキュリティって会社の現金。
A cop who ignores some serious offenses in order to focus more on some minor but more personal issues. Yeah, that sounds about right. Eventually, the G3 called out their leader, having figured out that she used Milky Holmes to harass them, and even managed to find some very convenient security cam footage that managed to spot Kokoro at each of their incidents. Now, as cops, they rightfully really should have filed for workplace abuse, but they let her off by just telling her to knock it off and let them relax, especially with the Phantom Thief Empire on an indefinite hiatus. However, like most trolls, that just gave Kokoro more reason to double down. Yeah, I have to agree with Ellie here. Cordelia clearly would have been a much better option considering what she did in the last episode. But yeah, under the guise that they were shooting a PSA, Kokoro had Milky Holmes impersonate the Empire to further goad her subordinates into action. Thus, they also had to steal something, so Kokoro had them further mess with the guys who, again, just accidentally stepped on her foot. Though, hilariously enough, Milky Holmes both pulled off some good impersonations of the Empire, and even proved to be more competent thieves than detectives. And thankfully, Kokoro finally started to get some karma when Milky Holmes decided to let her participate in her own PSA.
That makes sense to me.
Sure enough, the G3 spotted what they were doing and decided to get involved. Also, I wasn't expecting the very traditionally Japanese Hirano to be into goth loli, but not complaining when she looks that cute. Anyway, Saku ended up joining in on the show's version of the Blue Brothers chase when they literally crashed her AA meeting. I'm sorry, what did they call that stand-in for Facebook? Y'all know what you just said there, right? However, as the chase went on, it became very apparent that these security guards weren't actually what they appeared to be, as they had seemingly kidnapped someone in their trunk, and the G3 even later found their wanted posters. And after avoiding a random seal, they discovered who the guys were trying to kidnap. Yeah, in a pretty clever twist, it was the idol who had been seen on television throughout the episode that most viewers probably didn't even realize was an idol, and more likely assumed that her much cuter 28-year-old manager was the real idol, which, yeah, that's both hilarious and also kind of base, because I'll take Enka over the usual bubblegum pop any day of the week. With that, Milky Holmes unintentionally but rather effectively solved a kidnapping case, and Kokoro got some much-deserved karma. However, the episode then ended with Moriarty stealing an artifact because, big surprise, someone with a name like that was a thief. This was a pretty nice little spotlight episode for the G3. We got to see different sides to the secondary team through their interactions with Milky Holmes, who hilariously enough fumbled into an actual success for a change. Even Kokoro's contributions were kind of enjoyable just because she got some much-deserved karma afterwards. While they remained to be pretty dame as usual, it was actually kind of endearing to see Milky Holmes at least trying this one. They followed all of Kokoro's instructions, and as far as accomplishing her goals of annoying her subordinates, well, they certainly succeeded. Though thankfully those same subordinates saw right through Kokoro's machinations and didn't just blame Milky Holmes. It showed that all three of them were pretty smart and well aware of their leader's pettiness. Speaking of which, yeah, Kokoro was pretty infuriating throughout this episode, and it did get grating. Thus, seeing her plans go sideways by way of Milky Holmes just following her orders was very satisfying. More so when they incidentally solved a kidnapping case that had a fun little twist at the end. As a follow-up to their school being destroyed, this is also a good showing of how they're getting back on their feet. And overall, this is another fun episode that gave the G3 time to shine and Kokoro time to be shown up. Thanks for watching, and if you want to annoy your friends, well, I'm sure iReels could actually help with that. We've got something new coming out almost every day, and we will be able to pick up production on bigger projects soon enough. Look forward to whatever comes next, and until then though, farewell for now my friends, and excuse me. Yeah, why don't you all try the soup kitchen just 5 blocks down that way?